Dear friends, it's my privilege to introduce a very eminent panel to discuss the subject of ethics and teaching in universities and colleges. We have a panel of senior teachers, academics, educationists. Uh, on my extreme left is Dr. K. Lata. She is the in charge of the Department of Management Studies in Ramanujan College. Sitting beside her is the principal of Ramanujan College, Dr. S.P. Agarwal, an administrator, has been in the college as a principal for the last 12 years with immense experience in administration and looking after college. On my side is Dr. T.K. Mishra. He is a senior teacher in the Department of Commerce, but he is also the director of the School of Ethics and Values that the college, the Ramanujan College has, and he has been the founding director of this School of Ethics. He is also now looking after what is called the School of Happiness, which is a part of the college. In this panel discussion that we are going to have, we are going to discuss the relevance, role, and the importance of ethics in environment of teaching. Not only is it got to do with teachers, but also students and all the people who are associated, all the stakeholders who are associated with this process of education. Let me start this discussion with question to Dr. T.K. Mishra, as he has been a very central person to introduce the School of Ethics and Values in our college. What do you think, sir, is the relevance of ethics in the world of teaching as such?
Well, thank you. I would like to begin my discussion with highlighting the age-old tradition in teaching and learning, and that was Guru Shishya Parampara, which essentially spoke of strong bonding between teacher and student. Now, somehow, we are finding these days, and especially when the knowledge and information is available on the website, internet, etc., that the relationship that we used to have earlier, that is no more seen, and there is a definite need to restore that kind of relationship. And ethics is something that can build trust between a student and a teacher. So, there is no doubt that ethics can play a catalytic role in restoring that kind of bonding, number one. And number two, that people by and large, the students by and large, they are losing their faith in the education system, because the education system is not addressing their life problems, and they are not enhancing somehow their life skills through this kind of modern education. So ethics can play a very useful role there. You know, the problem is that ethics, just like yoga, pranayam, and sports, it requires the teacher to know, to apply. When we talk of ethics, we essentially talk of applied ethics. We don't talk on a philosophical level, that, and we don't talk in terms of sermonizing students. So the problem with the teacher is that unless he knows yoga, how can he teach yoga? Unless he practices ethics, how can he teach ethics? And unless he has a full faith in the principles of ethics, how can he justify I mean, and how can you resolve the ethical dilemmas that students are facing? So, the first condition is that teachers, if they want to do justice with the subject, they need to internalize the subject in themselves, and they they need to become their role model, students' role model, which nowadays we are facing that teachers is no more a role model for a student. So, in various ways, ethics as an applied ethics can be useful. Another important thing I would like to tell you that ethics is a universal concept. Teacher needs to tell students that it is something like 2 plus 2 is 4, and it is everywhere in the world and in every situations. Okay, so ethics doesn't change with the time to time and from place to place. It is one and same. Like backstabbing in New York is unethical, and it is not only ethical in New York, but it is unethical in any remote area of a country. So it is like minus into minus is plus. Ethical principles are universally applicable and universally acceptable. So these are the things which should be clearly spelled out.
Dr. Mishra, there is obviously a distinction between uh, teaching ethics and the ethics of teaching. So you are of course, you are obviously mentioning, what you're talking about is ethics of teaching,
Yeah.
where the teacher's responsibility of practice what he teaches,
Yeah.
or what he's going to impart is as important as what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely right. And I think we should clearly demarcate the two different distinct concepts. One is, teaching ethics subject to the students. Okay, so that is a different area where you spell out what ethics means and what are the types of ethics and how it is different from morality, values, etc. So you clarify the subject as such to the students that what actually ethics mean. Eh? For example, if I have to define ethics, I would say, goodness in action mode is ethics. Goodness in action mode is ethics. Therefore, I say it is basically applied ethics. So when you say that how ethics can improve the quality of teaching, and what is the role that ethics can play in improving the quality of teaching, there it, it is up to the teacher that unless he adopts them, unless he practices those principles himself in his personal and professional life both, I mean, a student should be seeing the teacher in three-dimensional way. I mean, absolutely transparent. Okay, and that is why we insist that anybody cannot teach ethics, because for that the most important thing is that teacher has to be ethical himself.
Yes, because what you just said reminds me of two great teachers of our country in the last century. One would be Gandhi, and the other would be Tagore. And in both their lives, we can see that they have practiced. In fact, Gandhi said that you be what you are. So the practicing of what you believe in is so ingrained. I mean, it was a part of the national movement in that sense. And many of our modern ethical ideas emerge from that movement that we had and what happened. Most, so I understand what you're saying about the teacher being that what he wants his pupil to be. Um, Dr. Lata has been teaching for a very long time in the college, and she's got generations of students have passed out from her class, and I can say that many, they have always looked up to her as a very good teacher. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lata as to what she thinks is the changing nature of her classroom in the last 2 decades or so, and how does she see herself and the role of a teacher in the practice of ethics, or what is the ethical situation, if I can put it that way, in the classroom as she sees it today, and what she saw when she had joined in as a young teacher.
Thank you. Actually, I have spent around 25 years, this is the third decade in teaching, and essentially I would say the character of student has changed. Initially when we went to the classroom, we had to tell them about the syllabus and how they have to deal with it in exams, or otherwise how they internalize the subjects, and we had to introduce them to everything that possible within that duration of time. But today's student is more aware, and he has access and exposure to so many other things that he already knows the content of what we are going to deliver in the class. He has access to information, he has access to internet, so he knows much more than what a normal student is expected to know when we enter the classroom. So the character of the student is a different one today. So when we went 20 years ago, when we went to the classroom, we had naive students who were afraid to even talk to the teachers, interact with the teachers. And trust building probably was much easier then. But now, since they have access to so much information and they want shortcuts for everything, because they think they already know so many things in advance. And so number one is we have to change the approaches to teaching. So which means if we have to change the approach to teaching, we have to, the teachers themselves have to learn more, do more research, and they have to change the approach to teaching. They have to incorporate new pedagogies, and we have to change how we look at the students. We are actually hand in hand moving with them, and whatever we are learning, we are telling them also. So we have to broaden our knowledge horizon and improve our own methods of teaching and incorporate new pedagogies in the classroom. Number two is, the trust building becomes much difficult, because if we are giving them only the knowledge which is given in books or in internet or whatever they can access, they can have access to, then they don't need us. So we have to give them much more. So it has to be accessorizing your teaching. One thing is that, for example, we have to use case studies methods, or we have to incorporate different methodologies so that we make it interesting, and then we tell them that we are giving them more content when you come to the classroom. It is not just what you get in internet or anywhere else or in the form of notes from seniors. It is much more in the classroom. So that, since they look forward to having much more interaction in classes, and only if it is meaningful, then they come to the classroom. So bringing them to the classroom means you have to give them more content. So this, for me, number one is that as a teacher, we have to be involved in increasing our own knowledge horizons and do research, and then increase our knowledge base, and then give them something more, something new, something contemporary. Number one is this. Number two is, whatever we do, they learn by experience and observing us. So which means whatever we are doing, whether it is inside the classroom or outside as activities, or in the conferences, or in the other areas of activities, in the form of activities, whatever we teach them, in such occasions also, they are also observing us about, for example, are we doing it systematically, are we doing it scientifically, are we indulging in wastage of resources. So these are the things, ethically we are teaching them by doing. So when we do certain things, they observe us and they learn a lot.
Probably even coming to class in the right time.
Yeah. For
Punctuality.
example, if we are punctual,
Yeah,
then they are also punctual. If we are serious about certain things, then they are also. If we are sincere, they are also sincere.
Wonderful.
So there are certain things that they come to the classroom and then they learn. So it's not just within the classroom, but even outside, whenever we are doing some activities, they also want to know how we are approaching
Correct.
those activities. Are we serious about it? Are we approaching it scientifically? Are we, the wastage of resources is a very important thing, because resources are always scarce, and you have to utilize them in such a way that they also understand the meaning of resources and
Value of it.
economically and efficiently using these resources. So we have to change ourselves as a teacher. What we did 10 years ago, we are not supposed to do the same thing. We also have to learn and evolve as a teacher.
And and also be seen as evolving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and that must go through. The student must understand that
Yeah.
here is an evolving student. I mean, evolving teacher.
Yes.
Then only it makes.
So then that kind of trust building becomes much
Yeah,
easier.
yeah.
And then they have confidence in us. And then they come back to us for everything that they want to learn from us.
Dr. Agarwal, you've been the head of this institution for a decade and more, and you are basically looking at both the teachers and the students as an administrator, the helm of affairs. What do you think? One could always ask you, do you think that ethics should be a separate subject which should be taught in colleges, as a discipline per se? Or do you think ethics could be something that should be there in each discipline, a component of each discipline? That's one aspect which is kind of curricular based or system based questions. But the other question that I'd like to ask you is, how do you see this interface between teachers and student as an administrator, and how do you look at the ethics of an institution as such within itself, and what it does to other institutions and other engagements that it has with the society?
Thank you, Dr. Samantha. I heard my fellow panelists on ethics, teaching, and student involvement in classroom. Let me tell you that to my mind, personally I feel that ethics should be part of teaching of each and every subject. Ethics cannot be taught as a separate discipline. Basically, what I feel is that suppose I am teaching commerce, management, or finance, I should be able to relate ethics with each and every topic and subject. Like, for example, I can tell you, let us say I am teaching a paper in accounting, and I'm telling them, okay, you do this, that is the way balance sheet is prepared, that is the way profit and loss statement is prepared, that is fine. But I'm also telling them, don't do this, don't do that. Probably that is not going to help. What we have to tell to the students is that if we do certain of these things, then what will happen, what can happen, that is to be taught. Like real-time examples, what happened in case of the failure in our country of various corporates like Satyam, like Kingfisher, Nirav Modi. That if accounting or the transactions are not done in a proper way, then it can lead to certain actions which are beyond the things. So similarly, the other day I was listening to a mathematics professor. He was saying that we always use the phrase world is small, but he related that phrase with the mathematics, and very beautifully he said that suppose I know you and you know 10 people, then I'm connected to those 10 people. So that is way the world becomes small. And he proved it mathematically that it is done. Similarly, what I feel is that whenever teacher goes to the class, he must relate that today's lecture on this topic and how I'm going to tell my student that this is the way its value is, this is the way it relates to the value, this is the way it can create happiness among you, and this is the way you can proceed in your career management. Because everything in the education we see is the career and the employment. That is fine. But with that, we should have fun in the life. We should know certain skills, which Dr. Mishra was talking. So this is also important as a teacher, that we should interact with our students. Another important point you raised is that over the period, what we have evolved in this institution and how I have, done with my experiences, evolution of this institution, I would like to share with all of you. That, see, what happens is that in any given institution, the people are given to you. And the stakeholders are given to you. The students are there, the karamcharis are there, the teachers are there. Now, as a head of the institution, we have to set certain examples. Like, we want that everybody in the institution should come on the time. Then the institutional head must be there at least half an hour before everybody comes. Similarly, in each and every decision making, involve the smallest stakeholders. Like we did here, in each and every activity, we involve teachers, students, karamcharis, their views, and how can we improve the functioning of an institution. Similarly, in using these things in the classroom, like we used to have that problem that teachers were not going to the classes or students are not coming to the classes. How to improve that situation? So when you bring in these small ethical things, when you are talking to the people that we have to set an example. If we are going on time in the class, the student will definitely come. Maybe one day he will be late, another day he will come on time. Similarly, we need to be very patient in each and every activity. We cannot be angry on our students. We cannot be angry on our employees. We cannot be angry on certain situations. We have to listen them carefully and then act. Yes, as a human being, we sometimes do react, but as far as possible, we should try to take along the people and convey your point in such a way that it leaves an impression on your students, teachers, and other stakeholders. So what I can say here, on this panel discussion, that teaching again is a, I should say is a noble profession, but teacher has to evolve over the period in such a way that he can use his own knowledge, his environmental knowledge, his knowledge by experience, and involvement of the students in the class is extremely important. And that is possible only when we, as madam said, that we should be able to give them something different what is not there in the internet or YouTube or books. We should share our experiences with them. We should share some activities with them. We should do the experiential learning with them. That is the only way we can teach ethics in the classroom.
Yes, I agree. And also, I'd like to draw the panel's attention to a fact that has happened in this institution. You see, if the classroom and the institution is an area of transaction, where I am supposed to give something and I'm also to get back something, then that transaction has to be clean and clear. For example, if you give me a clean classroom with proper equipment, then I'm required to give back to you a full-fledged class,
Right.
A proper class. So I cannot complain, in that sense.
I would
that
like to add something here.
Yeah.
Like sir was also saying, these ethical values as well as principles, whatever we have in ourselves, and as a head of the institution, for example, transparency or certain other principles that the administrator, the head of the institution has, or as a teacher in charge one has, or even a section officer or an accounts officer, whatever principles they adopt, it is very easily, it just trickles down the,
That's right.
and
That's
the
right.
subordinates also behave
That's
in
right.
the same fashion, and it is much easier to handle things because
Yes.
what happens at the top actually moves down, and the whole organization becomes transparent and following those
I agree.
principles.
Because-
See, what you have been talking about, that when I took over as principal, the first thing I noticed that the place is not clean, the toilets are not clean, the water is not clean. So my basic job was to first provide the proper infrastructure to my teacher, to my karamcharis, to my students.
Yes.
And after that I can expect something from them. So that is how we tried in this institution, and we have been quite successful.
Yes,
And that is on a day-to-day basis we are doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that has improved the percentage of classes happening in this institution, the quality of our students, the ethical values among our students, their life skills has improved, we have observed, and
Sense of belonging has
belonging
improved.
has improved.
I can
So
give you
all
an
this-
example. I mean, if Dr. Mishra will agree, a very basic ethical principle, say, of cleanliness.
Yes.
You're not supposed to throw a piece of paper in your classroom. Now, a student in my college, I mean, I see it here. The classroom is cleaned every day in the morning. That person comes every day, he cleans it. There is a dustbin in the classroom. There is no reason for the student to throw a paper in the classroom. So so therefore the college remains clean. I mean, if that is the way the principle
And
is
that
working.
is the culture we want to teach to each and every
Fair
of
enough.
the stakeholders, because we want that we should do everything by ourselves.
Okay.
If it is not clean, let us do it.
So-
Similarly, we have tried our students that okay, if something is not clean, either they should point out or they should do themselves. So they have learned a lot about it. And similarly, myself, I have been telling to my students that most of the time they should eat healthy food. That will improve their concentration and habits.
I think taking cue from our principal, something basic, something fundamental at emotional level and at intellectual level we should talk to students. Instead of, as you rightly mentioned, happiness, happiness school we have opened at with the initiative of our principal. This happiness means as well as an end of all human endeavors, with happiness your productivity enhances, and happiness is ultimate object of all your exercise. So and you also mentioned about Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi says that happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in perfect harmony. Okay.
Synchronized.
Now,
yeah.
this ethics helps you in bringing harmony between what you think and what you do. On the other hand, ethics also helps. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi only said, he said that humanity, you should not forget, and humanity is an ocean. We should tell our students that humanity is an ocean, and with few dirty drops in the ocean doesn't make the ocean dirty. So these are the things, if in society there are bad people, there are bad news also, that doesn't mean the society is bad. Okay? And the very important thing, as in the last lecture we all enjoyed, that students need to be told that, the demand supply syndrome, if they are able to understand properly, their all future needs are solved. For example, that if the demand for happiness, demand for trustworthiness, demand for honesty, integrity is much more in the society, and the supply for the same is less, then those who would be able to supply the happiness and integrity and honesty,
Will
they
be
would be
high
commanding a
demand.
very high price.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever is demanded by the society, you should supply that. This is such a simple thing.
Yeah.
And that is what we are stressing through this ethics center, that this is the reality and not, something virtual that we are going to, tell you.
Taking a point from what Dr. Lata said, that the contemporary student is in a shortcut mode. I think technology plays an important role in actually helping the student in that shortcut mode in the globalized world that we live. The internets that we have, the access to Google's, and we have a problem of plagiarization of people downloading stuff and giving it to us. I mean that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think there is an ethical problem. I mean, and it's not only, as we know, it's not only centered with students. Even
Yeah.
teachers
Yeah.
do that. Publications, everything is being questioned very seriously over the ethics of publication, which is where you paid somebody to publish.
That's
also.
what Dr. Samantha, I also said that, we need to tell them that, okay, don't do that is not going to help. But if we can say what can be its consequence, probably things can improve little further. Today, in today's world, and as Dr. Mishra said that, a drop in the ocean will not spoil, but uh, uh, you know, in our country especially, we can see that most of our rivers have been spoiled, thinking that a small thing will not spoil. So
Yeah,
now
small
we have to
pollution. Yeah, it's become very
now,
polluted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has become very.
Yeah,
So
that's
now
true.
we have to think in that direction, that how to come out. And we are using various ways. Today I was listening to NGT. They are saying that involve our star, the film movie stars, to communicate to the people that let us not spoil the environment, let us not spoil our rivers, let us not do this. So what is this? This is basically, what is happening is that we need to tell the consequences to the people in the society, that if I and you will spoil the environment, this will happen to you, and similarly it will happen to generations of years ahead. So all these things need to be communicated in such a way so that we are conscious of all these efforts.
Thank you very much. I think I
I
need
think
to
you,
thank-
you raised two things
Yeah. Any other
on
point?
globalization. We need to tell our students how important this subject has become in due course. If you want to have a trade relationship with someone sitting in Australia, your ethical conduct, and as you have maintained your books of accounts and everything, that will only help you develop a relationship between the two.
Right.
Earlier, what used to happen, that it was a domestic affair, it was a localized affair, so people used to know each other, and then they used to have business relationship. But now this is the only basis upon which you can have a relationship like that. This is number one. Number two, most important is, more important than this is, that the information that we are getting through internet, bulk of it is motivated, because all
Yeah.
it has a commercial angle. Okay, now students have to be told that which information is hygienic and which information is not hygienic.
Very good.
Like it is something like on a food plate.
What is good food?
Yeah, what food is good for your health, and what food. So here the role of a teacher comes.
Yeah.
That a teacher should help students to filter the information.
Yeah.
Okay, and what right information should be accessed and what should be avoided. All the students, they are disclosing their personal data. They are being trapped like anything. They are being exploited. So we need to save them from such kind of exploitation. So there comes a direct role of this ethics and values.
I think I can add something to this, that he has rightly said that today world is one, and there are certain international norms, there are certain international standards, there are some international practices.
Yes.
If we here will use them, it is easier to interact with people all over the world. So similarly, ethics plays a very important role, because if you see, laws may be different in different countries, but their intention is same. Whether it is traffic laws, where it is criminal laws, whether it is human rights laws, or violation of human rights, all these things are similar in the world, but the practices are different. So what we can do is that if we can practice in such a way that it is acceptable to everybody in the world, then things become easier for all of us to do, and things become easier for the generation, new generation who has to lead the country.
It's very interesting because in this discussion, sir, we have talked about not only ethics per se, but we also talked about the society, and we also talked about the environment.
Yes.
I think it's very relevant to mention here that the college has as the National Resource Center, is engaging three disciplines. One is of ethics, the other is of human rights, and the third one is of environment. So and as in our discussion it cleared. No, but
Excellent.
what I was stressing was the interrelatedness of these three disciplines. That you cannot have ethics, or you can have ethics only when it is in relation to environment and to human beings and to human rights. So I think that mix is very important. Yes, sir.
I can add one more thing here, that a recent example, you must be reading in the papers that about 100 of our students, more than 100 students of ours were admitted in a fake university in US, and now the US is taking action against them with the intention that they were knowing that this is a fake university and they wanted to come to US. That is why they are there. But on the other hand, Indian government is saying that they were caught.
Hoodwinked. They were hoodwinked.
They were hoodwinked. So, but the US government could prove that they were in knowledge, full knowledge. So now, on the one side, we can say it's a human right violation, but on the other side, it is intentionally people have done it. So this is unethical. So this is very important, from all the perspective which we are talking here.
So in conclusion, the shortcut methods always,
Yes.
we always
never-
end up in a soup. So they don't help us in long term.
Yeah.
This I would like to add here.
Maybe temporary benefits,
Yeah,
but
we only
ultimately,
get temporary
I mean, that
benefits
itself is an ethical value
Correct.
of Anyway, I'd like to thank Dr. Lata and Sir Dr. Agarwal and Dr. Mishra for this very interesting, involved discussion that we've had on ethics and its how it plays out in an institution like a college in Delhi University. Is one of the premier universities of the country, and it's been a very interesting, thought-provoking discussion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, and I hope this panel discussion is useful for our prospective teachers who are involved with this course. Thank you very much.